All right, let's call the meeting to order for February 22nd, 2021 for the Township of Ocean Planning Board. Let's call the roll call, please. Amy?
Okay. Mr. DeFilia?
Here.
Mr. Duffy? Dr. Fisher?
Here.
Mr. Good? Mrs. Close?
Here.
Mr. Siano?
Here.
Mr. Weinstein? Chairman DeBenedetto?
Here. Salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God,
indivisible.
liberty and justice for all.
The notice of requirements for the open public meeting law for this meeting has been satisfied. A copy of the notice has been sent to the Asbury Park Press and the Coaster and filed in the Ocean Township Clerk on July 27, 2020. Board policy: no new cases will be started after 10:30 p.m. and no new testimony will be taken after 11 p.m. Resolution memorialization: Logan Community LLC, Block 137, Lot 4, 5, 32, 1109 Logan Road, Ocean, for site plan approval, bulk variance approval. Do I get a motion to memorialize this resolution?
This is Ed. I'll make that motion.
Second?
I'll second.
Amy?
Mr. DeFilia?
Yes.
Dr. Fisher?
Yes.
Mrs. Close? Mrs. Close?
Yes.
Mr. Weinstein?
Yes.
Chairman DeBenedetto?
Yes.
Chairman, I would ask at this time that we be able to appoint the master plan subcommittee.
Of course. And I believe the three people are Chris Siciliano, Dave Fisher, and Ed DeFiglia.
Could we have a motion? Sandy, could we have a motion if that is as one motion?
Yes.
I make a motion to accept the three of them for the master plan review. We get a second?
Second.
Mr. Weinstein, second. Amy?
Mr. DeFilia?
Yes.
Dr. Fisher?
Yes.
Mrs. Close?
Yes.
Mr. Siano?
Yes.
Mr. Weinstein?
Yes.
Chairman DeBenedetto?
Yes. Okay, extensions of previous approval. Deal Golf and Country Club Block 59, Lot 1, 830, 850 Monmouth Road, Ocean, R-1. This is a request seeking a 2-year extension of previously granted minor site plan approval with variances by resolution granted on April 23rd, 2018. The attorney for the applicant is Peter Falvo. Is the attorney here? Is Mr. Falvo here?
I don't think so.
He's not, Mr. Chair, but as Dr. Chair, as his partner, Jennifer Krimko, I can enter the appearance on his behalf. I'm not sure if he intended on coming. He certainly didn't ask me to cover it, but my guess would be that they were unable to commence construction within the time frame of the 2-year protection, and he's just seeking the extension to allow additional time in which to complete the construction.
Okay. I have no problem granting him additional time. So I make a motion to approve this extension. Do I get a second?
Second.
Amy, roll call?
Mr. Cecilia,
Yes.
Dr. Fisher,
Yes.
Ms. Close,
yes,
Mr. Siano,
Yes.
Mr. Weinstein,
Yes.
and Chairman DeBenedetto.
Yes. All right, we got a continued case. Giovanni Scarpino, block 9, lots 6.11 and 7.11, 65 Larchwood Avenue, Elbron, R-1. This application is to re-subdivide 2 lots to create 3 lots. These lots are a result of a previous subdivision where 1 lot was subdivided into 3 vacant building lots and the larger lot, which contain a residence. A horse farm remained. Jennifer?
Hi, good evening, members of the board. Again, Jennifer Krimko from Ansel, Grimm and Aaron. As you may remember, at the last meeting, we had basically concluded our testimony and agreed that we were going to comply with the tree removal and replacement plan. And there was a question open as to what that was going to look like. And I know that the board chairman specifically wanted to see that plan before taking a vote. At the same time, there was a question of what percentage we were going to pay into the tree fund as opposed to replant. In the process of preparing that exhibit and addressing that, Bill Fitzgerald pointed out appropriately that the names of the designations of the lots had not changed, which would render it confusing since the lot boundaries were changing. So in the interim, we also reached out at Bill's suggestion to the tax assessor, got new lot designations. So what we're here to present to you tonight is an exhibit that Bill and Jim have reviewed, and Bill had written a report, and we actually modified it as a result of his report and resubmitted a new one. And I can stipulate that we can comply with all of the suggestions in his latest report as well. The exhibit further shows the relocation of the basin further to the south. It shows the relocation of the easement to the property to the east, and it shows the 100% replanting of trees as opposed to any payment into the tree fund. So I don't know, Mr. Chair, Dr. DeBenedetto, I don't know whether or not you would like to, I'll defer to you about whether or not you'd like Bill and Jim to review their reports or have us proceed.
So I think just for order purposes, maybe I just have Bill summarize his report. You're
Bill, you're on
muted.
mute.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry. I actually have 2 reports, but for the subject matter at hand, we're talking about the latest one would be today's report, February 22nd. And I don't know if you've seen in your packet the latest submission, but I had some comments that kind of quantify what's on the plan to make it really easy for the future. I indicated that no trees should be within 10 feet of the northerly property line. The top of the berm elevation should be 34 feet. I'm sorry. Should be 28 feet south of and parallel to the northerly property line. No trees should be closer than 5 feet to the northerly top of the berm. The whole point of that is there's an impervious core inside that berm to keep it from bleeding and failing. And if trees are on it or too close to it, they're going to fracture it and may cause a problem if that basin happened to be full of water. Spacing between trees should be approximately 35 feet to ensure that they get enough water and nutrients. To some reasonable extent, trees should be arranged in a more natural pattern with a few 2 clusters, 2 or 3 clusters, and a generally less linear scheme. It's a little bit of a civil engineering scheme there, 2 rows of trees on 2 lines. That's what you learn as a senior, but you got to get past that at some point and try to make this look a little more natural, give it a little more dimension. And also I said that trees to the south of the basin don't have to have tap roots, a vertically down root. They can have spreading roots. They're not anywhere near anything they can hurt, and they could add a little seasonal color and make it, again, give it a little more dimension. And that's it with regard to the latest tree replacement plan.
Bill, the one thing I would ask that you go into, since you laid it out, as the board knows, I had asked to have a resolution drawn to be brought to this meeting in order to expedite presuming we were going to be able to satisfy you with the tree plan. And one of the other things I spoke to Bill about in the interim is that the Township of Ocean wants to repave Larchwood Avenue, and they were delaying that in an effort to allow us to get our utilities to the new lot that we're proposing to create. Unfortunately, we can't make the call out for those utility installations until the lot has existed. So Bill came up with a proposal for some timing on if the board is going to vote favorably, how that would work. Bill, I don't know if you want to talk about that now or after we go through the plan.
My suggestion would be I don't know if you're going to share it on the screen or if the board
Yeah,
members.
I am.
Maybe-
Amy, if I can share my screen. I just need Amy to make me a presenter so I can share the screen. And there I go. Okay, let me make sure the right thing is up. Can everybody see this?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'd like to identify this exhibit as A4. And it's entitled on the first sheet, Tree Removal Plan. It's prepared by Insight Engineering and it has a revision date of 2/17/21. And if I could have Patrick, Patrick Ward was sworn at the last meeting and he remains under oath. So Patrick, are you there?
I am here.
Okay, so Patrick, you heard in the beginning, I talked about the fact that we relabeled the various lots to reflect the new lot numbers that were suggested by the tax assessor on Larchwood, starting at the north. Could you just go through what the new lot numbers are?
Sure. At the northwest, which is existing lot 7.11, it will be proposed as lot 7.12. Immediately to the south of that is our new lot that is being created. That's proposed lot 6.13. And then the remainder of the farm there, the larger tract, today it's lot 6.11, proposed as lot 6.12.
Okay, and on this first sheet, the X's just identify the trees that we're proposing to be removed, and in total, it is how many?
We have 63 indicated as to be removed, and that's within the proposed limit of disturbance for the stormwater management.
Okay, and that's only in the case of a full build out, but for the initial basin we talked about, it was 24 trees and then the additional 39 should the full build out be done.
That's correct.
Okay, and then going to the tree replacement plan, give my computer a second to catch back up. Could you just simply walk through what changes were made and what we did? I gave a slight overview.
Sure. So this is basically an expansion of the initial version submitted to the board. This shows that full build out. We have 63 proposed replacement trees shown on here in a variety, as suggested initially by Bill. We're happy to comply with his latest letter, as you had stated, Ms. Krimko, and this is the ultimate end of at the full build out of this particular property, what the planting plan could be. Obviously, we'll add some variety and some clustering and spacing as Bill had suggested. But
okay, and you also created the berm along the north property line where the 2 rows of trees are, and moved the basin to the south and relocated the easement based on Bill's suggestion.
Yes, even in this version, we had relocated things to the south just a little bit more, including that easement from a potential future development on lot 10 to our east. Based on Bill's latest comments, that will be shifting even further to the south to get to that 28-foot distance to the top of berm line, which, from an overall view, won't change the look of the plan much, but the details will be slightly modified in dimensions.
Okay, and
Pat, if I might, the way I worked it out, I was thinking you would come up on 4-1 as you did, 6-foot berm top. If you go down on 3-1, that line ends up right under 28. It doesn't really shift the meat of the storage volume from what you have on there.
No, I agree. I understood the intent there, so we appreciate that. Yep, I agree.
I was just trying to quantify it so it was simple.
It's very clear too, so we appreciate that.
While you're discussing it with the board, because we keep going back and forth between the full build out and probable, or the almost certain first initial build, is it fair to say that the 24 trees would include the 2 trees just to the right of the easement where the pipe seems to head north toward Perrine Avenue, and say the left westernmost 10 of the trees on the south side of the basin? Does that cover the 24?
Yes, and even on this plan, as you see before you, we're showing the proposed easements that are part of the immediate minor subdivision application that is before the board. So those dashed lines in that northwest corner of this lot, that indicates the currently proposed drainage easement for the immediate subdivision. So yes.
No. I think what Bill was asking you is these 2 trees I think the easement, Bill, you were referring to was the one on lot 33?
That's correct. So those 2 trees that you pointed to,
Yeah, these 2 trees and then,
the
12
westernmost
more.
10 trees on the
Right.
south side.
yep,
Yes, and that's
correct.
I agree. That's fair.
Okay, and Bill, we had talked about, since, ultimately, if their major subdivision occurs on the farm lot, it would have to be approved by the board, and ultimately the construction and phasing would go, and this may or may not be amended a little bit, but, Bill, you had indicated that the way that this basin is designed, it could be increased in size and increased in capacity as needed should there be development on the farm that does not require going back to the board.
That's correct. The whole point of this is that we have a coverage, impervious coverage requirement or limit in the ordinance, and it's fairly substantial. And so lot 6.12, which is the large lot, could be covered with a number of impervious surfaces that do not need any board approval. They conform with the ordinance. For example, a paved driveway from Larchwood Avenue to the existing house, a new house with a big driveway, tennis courts, deck, any number of things that don't need board approval that conform to the ordinance still has to be stormwater management. So that basin, in rough numbers, is 525 feet from west to east, and they're going to construct, again, in rough numbers, 125 feet at the westerly end, and so that leaves another 400 feet. It could be done in 4 phases of 100 feet, if as needed. So if they come in for a basketball court or a driveway, you do the next 100 feet, and if they come in for, someone comes in, whoever owns the lot, for more, then you do the next 100 feet if the first doesn't accommodate it, but do it in reasonable increments so that the neighbors to the north aren't constantly plagued with construction in their backyard. But the whole thing doesn't have to be torn apart the first day.
Right, and the likelihood is that ultimately the owner would at some point come back for the major subdivision and do it all at once, but in the chance that they don't, at least the township is protected and they don't have to come back to the board every time. So
Well, then it's protected too, because for every little thing of impervious cover that goes on there, he doesn't have to go to a board if it conforms to the ordinance. So everyone's
So-
protected. It works fine.
Dr. De Benedetto, what we would ask, and it was in Bill's letter of February 17th, is that we be allowed to work out as a condition of approval, a schedule with Bill as to the incremental construction. Where'd you go, Dr. De Benedetto?
I'm right here. I'm in the,
Oh, someone must have signed off and you moved and I lost you. The incremental expansion of the basin based on whatever Bill deems appropriate by way of an increase in impervious coverage, and then we can finalize the plans to his satisfaction, identifying those improvements.
I have no objection to that. I guess my first thing would be is to see if any of my board members have any questions about the plans that were submitted today. Okay, and then go ahead.
I was going to say that because we need to create that lot 6 point, now this has been thrown around so many times now I forgot. Lot 6.13, the new lot, that has to be perfected and created before the utilities can be tied in. And all of that has to be done before the town can repave the road in June. So Bill had suggested, and we would ask the board for their consent, to allow us to perfect the subdivision before resolution compliance, recognizing that no construction, no permits, nothing would be able to be issued until we have full resolution compliance. And at least that will allow the town to go forward and pave the road, and will create this individual lot. And then
Okay.
Bill had also made additional suggestions of locating the driveway within a time certain so the town could identify that area for their curb cut, and creating a homeowners association for the purpose of maintaining the basin, since it will be on the farm lot and it will actually be serving lots 613 and 712. So we would agree to do all of that in resolution compliance, just recognizing the immediacy with which we need to get this recorded so we can get that utility line in. Because otherwise there's a moratorium for 5 years otherwise.
How do you feel about that, Bill?
I'm fine with it, Mr. Chairman. I had actually, as I said, I started out with 2 letters. The earlier one, the February 17th, had that whole suggested schedule in it. It protects everybody, the town, the client, I mean, the applicant, the owner, future owners, from any problems, but it does allow the town to move forward. This project with Larchwood Avenue reconstruction has been delayed once already in anticipation of this subdivision. It's now taken a little longer than anyone anticipated. And as I understand it, the project is scheduled for early this spring, or late spring, I'm sorry, early summer. And there's no reason to put it off. Everybody can be adequately protected, but allow the applicant to file a subdivision, create the lot, and get the utility service connections between the lines in the street and behind the curb line. That protects everybody.
Sandy, so I guess we could make this part of our a condition of the positive resolution, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Joe,
And
I
we
have a
can-
question.
I'm sorry, Mr.
I have a
Dr.
question. Yes, I have a question for Mr. Krimko. So you are pretty, obviously you're clear on the 5-year moratorium, because that's what happens. Nobody needs to open that road, because all of a sudden it comes back to the town, and then we're dealing with that problem of, sorry, we can't open that road for 5 years.
Right, and Dr. Fisher, that's why we were pushing so hard to get this moving. Greg Blash, the township engineer, was kind enough to delay it, knowing this was pending. So once we are able to record the subdivision, we can get the utility, open the road, get the utility lines in, and we can identify the curb cuts for the driveways on the 2 lots facing Larchwood, and then there would be no reason to open the road again.
Okay.
Okay, any questions from the public? Okay, we can close the hearing on this application. Do I have a motion for positive or negative for this application from the board? I make a positive resolution.
I second it.
Mr. Chairman, as indicated by Ms. Krimko, I was asked at the last meeting, as you might remember, to prepare a proposed resolution. And I've listened to the testimony tonight, and I am able to paraphrase the resolution, which you could use. It's not just a resolution in the normal sense, but also to have it, in essence, constitute the written resolution, or what we normally call a resolution memorialization. So if you'd like me to go over that, I'd be happy to do that.
Go over in the beginning, like the nuts and bolts of it, or just the resolution, the first resolution?
The resolution.
Anybody would like to hear about the resolution?
No, I think you want me to, because this is a unusual resolution, because we won't have a resolution and memorialization. So in essence, I prepared a written resolution, which will be
please paraphrase and go for it.
Okay, the resolution I prepared is 28 pages long. I'm not going to read every word to you, but I will synopsize it so that you'll have a comfort level in knowing what you're voting on. So the first 15 pages or so goes into the history of this matter, provides the usual details, because this is a creeping major subdivision that has more details than might be normal for certainly a small 4 or 5 lot subdivision. It synopsizes the reports by Mr. Higgins and Mr. Fitzgerald, including the report dated today by Mr. Fitzgerald as he discussed it with you. The variances that are being considered and would be voted upon deal with 1, soil removal and grading. There are details about the reason for that, the rationale as to why it should be granted. Next, a tree location and preservation plan. You've heard a lot of testimony in the last 2 meetings about that. Also, because of the peculiarity of this particular application, there's a long section dealing with stormwater management compliance, which adds a lot of language that's been provided and offered by Mr. Fitzgerald in the last 2 meetings. There is great detail about how the drainage collection system will have to be installed based on satisfaction of different criteria. In this section, I've also added in writing reflection of today's report, the reliance on the review of the new plan that you've just shown, or Ms. Krimko showed to us, of the tree planting plan. The board will accept the applicant's tree replacement plan, which I just mentioned, subject to various conditions of compliance, and specifically the 6 criteria set forth in Mr. Fitzgerald's report of today. There's a long section dealing with the 20-foot wide drainage easement, which had been a subject of concern. So criteria will have to be met with regards to that by the applicant. There's also details about when steps will be taken after this resolution is passed, and that correlates with Ms. Krimko's discussion, Dr. Fisher's discussion about needing to move ahead as soon as possible for road closing purposes. Then we get to the standard findings of fact and conclusions of law. There's a reliance on the flexible C variances to pass the variances in question based on the findings of fact. Now, I have 6 pages dealing with conditions, and because of the nature of this, I think I almost have to read this to you, but I'll try to do it quickly. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the planning board grants a subdivision subject to the following conditions. A, any street accessing future development of new lot 6.12 be located adjacent to new lot 6.13, and the 50-foot side yard setback of the new lot 6.13 be treated as a front yard with respect to regulations governing any accessory structures, including fences and hedges. Additionally, the plan shall be amended to designate that there shall be a 50-foot setback as a front yard setback in order to avoid confusion in future subdivisions. B, the street trees on new lot 7.12, subject to conditions of the last board decision regarding the subdivision, shall be planted in the immediate future, and they shall be a minimum of 4 inches caliber to be consistent with the existing street trees along the side of Larchwood Avenue. C, any future development of lot 7.12 shall be subject to the tree replacement requirements of, and I set forth the particular ordinance here, with regard to tree preservation. Any future development on new lots, 6.13, maintain the existing street trees in front of that lot. D, the submittal of a tree location and preservation plan subject to the approval of the planning the board planner and board engineer that addresses the initial drainage facilities as proposed and which provides adequate tree replacement along the northern portion of the site in order to maintain an adequate visual environment and afternoon shade conditions for those properties to the immediate north of the site, subject to the applicant coordinating with the board planner with regards to an agreement on incremental construction phases of the basin. E, both water quality and water quantity and quality requirements of the stormwater management regulations shall apply to the 3 proposed lots of the subdivision as stipulated to by the applicant at the January hearing and subject to the approval of the board engineer and board attorney. The following situations must be addressed and or conditions met with resulting details being appended to filed deeds for each lot if and when the subdivision is perfected and subject to review and approval by the board attorney. Colon. The drainage and stormage management design must be finalized to address the fact that under the current ordinance, this 11.78 acre tract is allowed 7.95 acres of impervious coverage, whether it is 1 lot, 3 lots, or 30 lots. The actual construction can be tied to the installation of impervious coverage across the site via a homeowners association and approved phasing plan and detailed construction specifications. Next, new lot 612 by deed shall be restricted to provide access within a 50-foot wide strip adjacent to proposed lot 612, which will make new lot 6.13 a corner lot. Next, the drainage collection system that is constructed shall be designed to accommodate a future subdivision. In that regard, 1, the 2 proposed A inlets, and I'll bypass that, but these are details that come from Mr. Fitzgerald dealing with particulars of the engineering. F, the grant of the variance shall be subject to compensation for the loss of trees being in the form of planted trees rather than monetary donations to mitigate impacts upon adjacent north-facing lots along Perrine Avenue. G, and this goes into the time of the essence component. Applicant shall have a resolution of the approval published within 7 days of today's date. Applicant shall file subdivision instruments within 45 days of today's date. Applicant and or property owner shall within 7 days of today's date apply to all utility companies for Larchwood Avenue service connections to the 3 lots of the subdivision. Copies of all service applications will be provided. Within 90 days of today's date and prior to any construction other than that associated with utility service connections discussed above, applicant's engineer shall finalize an acceptable storm management plan for the development, which shall include construction drawings, supporting designs, et cetera, et cetera. Next, drainage easements, 20 feet in width shall be provided along the common boundaries. And then there's details as to that. Next, utilizing the contours and grading patterns depicted on the plan. There has to be compliance with that in the storm management plan. Next, temporary and or permanent subsurface connections to the municipal drainage system are outlined in detail here. Next, there's a provision for a temporary sediment basement to protect the downstream properties, and there's some additional reference to details. Next, provision of an acceptable stormwater management basin to mitigate impacts that would be anticipated to obtain from development of the 2 new smaller subdivision lots. Next, provision of an acceptable full build-out stormwater basin design, the installation of which can be staged as necessary to mitigate increased impervious coverages upon the subdivision lots, and there's more details about that. Next, prior to any construction other than utility service connections, applicant shall obtain and get all reviews, approval, certifications, or letters of no interest from any applicable agencies. Next, a submittal of a revised plan moving the 20-foot wide easement southward away from the lot lines has to be accomplished. And I believe, based on the submission tonight, that has been done so. Next, in particular, compliance with all recommendations of the board engineer in his reports, including the planting tree details in his February 22, 2021 report. The rest of the conditions are all standard. Any questions? Anybody want me to repeat that?
Andy did a great job.
Thanks.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Does anybody have any discussion about what Sandy read? If not, let's do the roll call, Amy.
Mr. DeFilia,
Yes.
Dr. Fisher,
Yes.
Mrs. Close,
yes,
Mr. Siano,
Yes.
Mr. Weinstein,
Yes.
Chairman DeBenedetto,
Yes. All right,
Thank
congratulations.
you.
All right, new case, Seaview Acquisitions LLC, Block 141, lots 1, 2, and 23, 2301 and 2341, Route 66, Ocean, C-4. This application's for a building and site improvement to a 92,980 square foot building to create retail distribution center with variances in relationship to parking, landscape, and site height, etc. Ms. Krimko.
Good evening again, Dr. DeBenedetto, members of the board, Jennifer Krimko on behalf of the applicant. All of us are intimately familiar with this shopping center. I think it might have even predated some of our births. It's been there for so long. This is the Seaview Square Shopping Center, which, as you have seen based on the applications before you over the years, has been step by step being upgraded and brought to really modern and great standards. We are excited that the last portion, the last area that needs to be redeveloped is the the upper level of the former Sears building that faces Costco. Many of you may have seen that At Home has recently taken the portion of Sears on the lower level that faces Target. That did not need to come before you because it was merely adaptive reuse of the building without making any changes to the parking lot. Through our proposal, we are proposing some changes to the parking lot, and we are going to be using it as a retail distribution center, which is actually a use that was recently approved by the council as a permitted use in this zone. So what I'd like to do is, we did submit plans in. We can move those into evidence, and then, like the last application, upon the receipt of reports from Bill and Jim, we were able to create exhibits that effectively address all of those comments. So I'd like to focus as much as we can on that, but I think that we should move those other items into evidence, if that's okay.
Proceed.
Okay, thank you. So here it is. It's always a pleasure working from home. A1 is the preliminary and final site plan prepared by Mazer Consulting. There's no revision date, and that's dated 1/29/21. And that consists of 13 sheets. A2 is the boundary and topographic survey prepared by Edward S. McConnell, and that is dated 1/20/21. A3 are the architectural floor plans and renderings of the proposed renovations to the building, and those were prepared by Stantec Architecture, Inc., and those are dated 12/18/2020. And then A4 is the traffic evaluation prepared by Langen Engineering, dated January 28th, 2021. And then, Amy, am I still able to share my screen? Yeah, I am. So I'm going to read it into the record right now, Dr. De Benedetto, but I'm going to wait for my witness before going over what they actually are, if that's okay.
That's fine.
Okay, A5 is a landscape exhibit prepared by Mazer Consulting. It's updated landscape plan exhibit prepared by Mazer Consulting. It should have today's date because that's when it was finalized. A6 will be an exhibit that reflects shelter details, and we'll explain that. And then A7 is a color rendered landscape exhibit, which we'll go over. So what I'd like to do is introduce Patrick Lynham, have him sworn and accepted as an expert. He was testified before this board when we did the various additions to the west end of the building and the Starbucks. So the board should be familiar with him.
Mr. Lynham, would you raise your right hand, please? Do you promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
You have to unmute yourself, Patrick.
I do.
Thank you.
Would you like me to qualify him, Dr. Benedetto, or can we proceed?
We can proceed.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So what I'm going to do, Patrick, is I'm going to put what I moved into evidence as A5 up on the screen, and it's essentially your site plan with some changes that you made to it. And I think if you could walk the board through what we're proposing by way of changes both to the site, and then we can talk about to the building.
Where you want me to talk about what we initially submitted first, or you want to go right into
No,
what we
I
changed?
think that you can. I think you can do that in the context of what the changes are. So let's just give them an overview of what the changes are, and then what additionally then what we revised based on Bill and Jim's comments.
Okay. So basically what we're doing is renovating, obviously, the second story of the building. It's about 93,000 square feet. We're also taking the existing triangular canopy and reconstructing that into a rectangular canopy. We're also modifying the entrance doors along the front of the building and along the left side of the building as well. So we're also modifying obviously the parking lot is changing to accommodate the tenants' use as far as segregating the Sprinter van parking spaces from the standard parking spaces on the left of the parking lot. We're also modifying the loading area to open that up further to accommodate the truck loading. What you see in the light gray is all areas where we're looking to repave these areas because of the grading out there. So we got to accommodate these new grading slopes. So we need to rip up that pavement and adjust the grades in those areas. That's why you see it that way. Also proposing, the landscaping. You can see the landscaping on the plan. Some modifications to the light pole locations, but not significant. And the utilities are very minor as well. We're looking to reutilize a lot of the existing utilities. Actually, all of the existing utilities. We're just modifying the gas meter, the fire department connection, and that's really, and putting some roof drains into the canopy. That's pretty much our utility, and relocating some fire hydrants. So it's very minimal utility work. The majority of the work is regrading the parking lot and redistributing the parking as well as circulation for pedestrians. So we're also proposing a directional sign along the right side of the ring road, and some building signs as well to identify the building. So that's pretty much the summary of the design and improvements. I'm going to now just jump into what you see in red. These are the changes that we proposed based on discussions we had with the board professionals, and I'll start with the removal of, we had proposed sidewalks vertically between the parking stalls. And we since removed
Pat, let
those.
let me just interrupt you. Does the board see where the cursor is where I'm pointing it out? I just want to make sure that if I'm acting like Vanna White, it's for a purpose.
Yeah, we can see it.
Yeah, you
Okay,
can see
good. Okay,
You can increase the screen size if you want to, people.
sure. How's that, better?
Yeah.
Okay,
So yes,
sorry, go ahead, Pat.
the 3 vertical islands were put in by the applicant for pedestrian circulation. However, after revisiting and recommendations from the board professionals, we chose to remove those sidewalks because all intents and purposes, people are going to walk behind the cars anyway. So we chose to remove the sidewalks, reduce the impervious coverage below the existing coverage, so we don't need any stormwater management. And also we added the trees within these islands as well as elsewhere on the site in order to comply with the tree preservation ordinance.
Okay, and
So-
also Patrick, Jim had made some suggestions as to planting in these islands, which included the hardy grasses as well as the decorative stones, which is similar to what else is throughout the center. And we can agree to do that subject to his review and approval. And that's what's
Yes.
shown here?
Yes.
Okay.
So you can see over to the right, I'm going to get into, we had removed to the northern ring road portion. You can see we removed 2 van parking spots because at the request of the board engineer, because of the concern of those vehicles backing out into the ring road. That also afforded us some additional green space to reduce the impervious coverage on the property. You can see the 4 tree diamonds in the center. Those were removed. Quite frankly, they didn't provide much any function. Plus, they would be a hindrance to snow plowing anyway. So those were removed. If you go down to the front of the building, if you want to just pull that down, Jen, please. Yes. So whoops, go too far, a little too far there.
Oh, our front, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Here.
That's good. Yeah, so you can see also there was this large expanse of pavement in front of the canopy, and there was concern about traffic circulation and trying to guide people, in that area. So what we proposed here, and we can further get guidance from the board engineer, but we had put in a drive aisle. We're going to stripe a drive aisle, and we're going to stripe egress only line arrows coming out from underneath the canopy, and that should help with circulation. These are all going to be people that are going to be experienced drivers anyway. Plus, there's going to be employees that help with operations in the parking
Right.
lot as well.
And Patrick, one thing, you didn't change it or show that it's part of the building, but this dotted line is actually the canopy, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and the reason you didn't shade it was you could show the aisles underneath. And just for the board's edification, a retail distribution center is basically the last stop in between when a product is ordered online and it goes out for delivery to someone's home or business. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so this would be the vans that would line up in order to take the product from the building and send them out to delivery to the various addresses where the final user would be.
Correct. And you can see just to the north of that is where the vans queue up. You can see they're all checkered board type of area. That's where the vans queue up and they wrap around and come underneath the canopy, pick up the product, and they leave to go deliver the product. The other item I want to bring everyone's attention to is to the left side of the building. We just lost it. Yeah, there we go. There are 2 shelters that the tenant wants to put in. The southern one is a more or less an employees smoking type of shelter. And the one to the north of it is the Rideshare Shelter. They're essentially similar to bus shelters. And here's the other exhibit showing what they look like. And you can see, they look like any type of bus stop shelter. out there.
And these are prefabricated and
Yes.
more or less brought and placed onto the site?
Yes,
And this is purely just as an accommodation to the employees of the tenant?
correct.
Okay.
And those
What
were the
other
major, those are the major changes. I mean, we did add some striping to the entrance because we thought to focus on that from the ring road. But other than that, those were the changes requested by the board professionals, as well as the goal to keep impervious coverage below existing coverages.
Okay, and the variances that were talked about with regard to the directional signage and the parking lot configuration, I'm going to defer to Jim Higgins on that, but it's not really new. It's consistent with what's throughout the development already. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Okay, and while I have you, I just want to, since we moved them in, and if you can just bear with me 1 second. We did submit these architectural plans and they've been on file, and you had indicated that you indicated the changes to the site, but the building footprint itself is remaining. The building footprint itself is not changing, correct?
Correct.
Other than the addition of the canopy, which you testified to.
Yep.
And these are the elevations, Dr. Benedetto, that were moved in, and they just depict that they're adding the awning and some paint and compliant signage and access doors and windows, correct? No, nothing's being done to the footprint of the building or the structure of the building, with the exception of changing out that awning.
Correct.
Okay, and let me take this down. So I think I hit everything that Bill had asked. I know that Jim had some comments as it relates to the variances and what we were doing. It's a relatively simple application, Dr. Benedetto, and that it's an existing use and, I'm sorry, it's an existing building. We're just doing some infill. We're going to agree to everything, and as Jim had indicated in the beginning of the meeting, his letter. I'm not sure how much deeper you'd like us to go.
I have a question. Can we go back to the parking lot?
Sure. And if you don't mind, I'm going to show the color rendered one because I just think it's easier to see.
Fine.
I needed the red for Patrick to point out the changes, but I think in this it's easier to see. And one thing to point out, I asked Patrick, there are trees in these islands, but they're existing trees, so they weren't colored in. So the only thing that's colored in are the new trees. Is that correct, Patrick?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So I just wanted to make that clear.
So just familiarize myself to the site. The area to this, I guess, would be the south, where you're putting in the enclosure, the bus stop area. Is there a way to get into that area there by car? Like somebody driving on that road isn't there a road that runs along that side of the building there? Is there an entrance to the staging area? Like right there, just above you. Just above, like before you get to the trees, is there a driveway there?
No.
There isn't.
No, so Patrick, correct me if I'm wrong. Where the cursor is here is Costco,
Yes.
and the gym is down here, and this is the drive out that kind of comes from the gym and comes up here. And I believe it used to come around and go through here.
Yes,
Correct.
it did.
Okay, and
You're changing that.
right, and you'd remember there was an old awning here that you could drive through, I guess, for delivery and pickup at Sears. So that will
Right.
no longer be accessible by a vehicle?
Correct.
Okay, well, that's a good change. Does anyone else have any questions?
So
Yeah,
is the
I do.
the parking, oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
You want me to go?
Mr. Weinstein, please take the floor.
Oh. So the parking is going to be restricted to the employees of that facility?
Well, Mr. Weinstein, a couple things. The first one is No, we're not restricting it. We anticipate that's who is going to park there because it's basically going to be that distribution center.
Mhm.
I will note, and I meant to include this in my opening, and I'll ask Patrick. Patrick, with the change of use, our parking requirement is diminished. And as a result, we actually have a net increase in parking over what's existing there today, even with all the changes we're making.
That's correct.
So essentially, we're not exacerbating any of the relief that the board has previously granted as it relates to parking. We're actually improving it nominally. So we're not taking away any parking.
Okay.
Mr. Fisher, Dr. Fisher?
Okay. So
I'm glad I'm not the only
question,
one.
does the public have any access to this? Would I, as a person who lives in town, have any reason to drive my car there and pick something up?
As I understand it, it's not precluded, meaning, let's say you order something online and you don't want to have it delivered to your house because there isn't a safe place for them to leave it. You can opt to pick it up at this last end of the line. So there will be some people who do that. Yes, there will be access to come in and pick that up.
And have we explored the safety concerns for that? You know, because you got vans going, you got people hustling, and then you got some guy like me who just wants to pick up whatever, and I don't know where to go.
Yeah, we did, and that's part of the reason why the signage is going to be there. So it's very clear as to where everyone wants to go. It's my understanding from the tenant that the number of people who actually come and pick it up are few and far between. It's also my understanding from the tenant that the operations are manned quite a bit, and it's very orchestrated. It's not just vans coming and going at will. It's an organized, timed type of operation. Patrick, is that your understanding?
Yes, the vans come in at a scheduled time, and there's people actually in the parking lot ushering where the vans go. So, and also, if you notice, there is a sidewalk that's segregated from those operations along the west side, which brings employees as well as those few people that do come down and go into the building.
And also, Patrick, the vans, the timing of the vans, that's really the last in the process. That's from approximately 9 to 11:30 or 12 o'clock, and then they're gone for the day. So it's not as if there's vans coming and going all day.
That's correct.
Which adds me to my next question. Is this a 24-hour operation? Are we seeing people working there all through the
Yeah.
3 shifts?
Yeah.
Shifts?
Yes, Dr. Fisher.
Okay. Approximately how many people are going to be working at this facility?
I think it was put in, we did submit with the application package, a pretty lengthy tenant operation. So in what was submitted, we anticipate that at the biggest shift is anticipated to be approximately 50 employees.
50.
How many employees?
50.
Only 50. Only 50?
Yeah, so, and just, and again, I'm just reading into the record what was submitted in writing to the board. Essentially, this is the last stop between purchasing a product on the internet and having it delivered to the individual homes. It's not a fulfillment center where you think about a big distribution and packaging and organizing. This is more or less the last stop. In the overnight, there's a shift where the trucks come in and they unload the product and sort it and organize it. And then there's the van shift in which they take it out. So, and they're sorted out and they're sent on the delivery routes. And during that process, as according to the proposed tenant operations statement we submitted and Patrick testified to, there's approximately 15 managers and dispatchers that are supervising while that happens.
Is there going to be any fueling or maintenance going on in this facility?
No, there's not.
No.
Okay.
No, it's going to be very strictly within the confines of the ordinance and what's permitted here. Nothing's stored here. This is not a warehouse. This is a last stop to get it from the large trucks into the smaller trucks and out to the homes and or businesses.
Yeah, but it will be stored because of in the last mile strategy, overnight is when it's stored, right?
Well,
I guess
when I say,
right.
when I say stored, Mr. Weinstein, I mean stored for any period of time. Yes, it's stored from, it goes on a shelf until it can be sorted and put on the van that day.
Okay.
So
You
I have
anticipate-
a question about the vans. The vans live there, right? This isn't independent contractors showing up in the morning with their vans coming in and then going out. Someone drives to
I'm
the
glad
site.
that-
takes it out.
I'm glad that you asked that. And again, this is also in what we submitted in the written form. And again, there are some. So, and I'm just going to read this into the record because I think it's the simplest thing and it sounds like not all the board members either read it or got a copy of it. Generally, when items are purchased on the internet, they are first delivered to the larger fulfillment center. The product will be put on a tractor trailer and brought to this delivery station. The trucks would arrive generally overnight hours. The packages are offloaded, sorted, picked to the delivery routes, and placed onto the movable baker's racks and staged for dispatch. So, Mr. Weinstein, they will be stored for those few minutes until they make it to their next location to get on a truck. The work would generally be completed by the first shift of warehouse employees that arrive at about 1:30 and depart at 12:30 p.m. And that's the one that's 50 employees. Then the delivery vans are prepared to make the package deliveries. There are approximately 15 managers and dispatchers to supervise. They are anticipated to arrive around 5:30 a.m. and depart around 2:30, followed by another shift of additional dispatchers. The van delivery drivers would arrive at the delivery station at 9 a.m. and park their personal vehicles and pick up their delivery vans. The facility has timed and staggered approximately 105 delivery van departures to reduce the number of vans entering the surrounding roadways during the rush periods. Starting at 10:30 a.m. and ending approximately 12:30 p.m., the delivery vans will load and depart in groups in 20-minute intervals. And then I was mistaken before. It is anticipated that at that moment, it's the largest number of employees, which is 110. Did that answer your question, Mr. DeFiglia?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
Does anyone else have any questions?
So we don't think it will create only a minor traffic issue for a certain period of time in that area?
It actually won't. It actually won't, Mr. Weinstein, and we did submit a traffic report, which is why I moved it into evidence. And the conclusion by the traffic expert was it's actually going to create less traffic, even with the concentration of the vans, than it would be in a fully built-out retail for the same square footage.
Mm.
And that is in his report, and that's dated January 28th, 2021. I can certainly have him testify if you'd like, but we did move that into evidence.
Who is
Mr. Chairman,
this,
a couple of
retailer?
questions.
Who is this company that's building this out?
Well, I knew that we can all surmise, and I'm happy to say it's going to be Amazon.
Because that's why I was thinking, because I just read they're building one here on Jumping Brook Road in Falls.
They are, Mr. Ciano, and because this is the last stop, they're very concentrated in the region in which they go to. So this is to serve the immediate area, essentially to the east of this building.
Okay.
So it's where everybody in Ocean Township lives and where I live in Interlaken and up and down the eastern Monmouth County by the shore. The Tin Falls facility is an entirely different demographic. And that's why, to answer Mr. Weinstein, they don't anticipate a lot of traffic issues because it's so specialized just to this very area. It's not a lot of coming and going.
Yeah, I understand their business model, so I assumed it was them, but I was thinking, wait a second, they're building one, as the crow flies, maybe 3 miles away. That's why I was.
I've done other applications where we were not at liberty to say, but we are at liberty to say here.
Is there any kind of enhanced security system that they have to put in for this area, for this or not?
Since I think someone's going to be there 24 hours a day, I don't have the answer.
So?
I don't think so. I can find out. I'll be able to report that shortly if there's any other questions.
Mm-hmm.
Does anybody else have any questions for the witness?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I have one or two questions, because this went a little different than normal. So I don't know if you got it, but what I sent out on Wednesday or Thursday was actually it was Wednesday afternoon, a markup of their sheet 4, which is a circulation plan in their plan set, and a number of questions on it. And I had intended to get a report out today, but as things went, we didn't have the exhibits in time to get a report to Amy in time to get to the board. So my questions, some of which have been answered to some degree, some of which haven't. I'm going to run down them kind of quickly. The plan that I reviewed last week showed a 700,000+ limit of disturbance area, but the question that I asked is, what is the actual area being disturbed? I asked, what is the actual area of increased impervious coverage? And I understand that it's a decrease based on the latest exhibit that you saw. Number 3 was I had indicated that we didn't need all those sidewalks, and they have accommodated that recommendation from both Jim and me and replaced them with landscape areas. I noted in number 4 on that sheet markup that the variance from site lighting ordinance is required. In that regard, I want to point out that we did not develop the current site lighting ordinance till well after the first iteration of this. It was under consideration. We had some standards that we were working with the planning board on in the late 1990s. I believe the big iteration of this center came in 1999 when it was switched from a mall, Seaview Mall, to Seaview Center, and that whole interior core hallway, if you will, of the mall was removed, and it was the whole circulation plan and whole lighting plan changed. In any event, that lighting plan at the time was thought to be a very good lighting plan in terms of levels of brightness or illumination and ratios, so it doesn't go from very light to very dim very quickly, and etc. So if they kept the lighting plan exactly the same, it would still need a variance. I think they're making some minor changes. I'm going to recommend that we allow within reason, because it's pretty tough to do this exactly. No more than 10% deviation from the ratios and illumination levels shown on the original approved plan for Seaview circa 1999, 2000. The traffic control striping that I asked for, where those vans all come out from under the canopy, is partially there. We can talk about that. I'm just looking maybe for a center line that kind of the driveway rail and defines an in and an out, even if it's dashed, so people can cross it. There were a couple of things that wasn't clear, but they seem to be removed. I think number 9 was discussed. However, I'm going to talk about it again. Apparently, what I thought was only employee parking or van driver parking now also accommodates a few, but some people picking up. I think that there has to be some signage that's really clear, and 1 or 2 stalls, or maybe 3, closest to the building along with the barrier frees ought to be reserved for people picking up. Not more than 1 or 2 if it's that low, but I mean, you've got to have a way to go and be fairly close. Because all the other most of the parking in there is 12 by 27 van stalls.
We're fine with that, Mr. Fitzgerald, and we'd be happy to work with you to decide which ones and what kind of signage would be appropriate.
Okay, so but can we get some answers to the disturbance area?
Yes, disturbance area is 2.73 acres.
Okay. That requires some considerations as to your drainage and stuff, right?
Well, we meet all the drainage. We're reducing impervious coverage, and means we meet the offsite, the peak and the recharge. Because we're not adding a 1/4 acre of new impervious, we don't need to provide water quality. And I think that addresses the 3 main points.
Okay, area of disturbance doesn't play into.
It does. It triggers the requirements because you're over an acre, but we're complying with the requirements by essentially what we're doing by reducing impervious coverage,
Okay,
and we're
so
not increasing over 1/4 of an acre.
Report demonstrating that.
Okay.
And I can stipulate to the question that there is no special security other than what there would be for retail. We do have a safety team on site 24/7.
Oh, okay.
Does anyone else from the board have any questions for Patrick Lynham?
I just think we really need to look at when I call the end users, us, people like myself want to go there and pick up a package. I know it's not that crazy, this time of year, but at holiday time, I've been at FedEx and UPS and the lines are out the door. People like, where's my package? Can I pick it up? The driver didn't drop it off. And I'm talking a lot of people. And I just want to dovetail into what Bill said is make sure we have enough spaces for those people, especially come crunch time during the holidays, that they can accommodate them.
We will, Mr. Santa. I mean, I have a representative from the tenant here. She can address that if you'd like me to introduce her, or we can agree to work with Mr. Fitzgerald in resolution compliance should the board vote to approve this, subject to his satisfaction.
Okay, I just wanted that to be heard so Bill hears that.
We will.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the board? Anyone from the public that has a question for Patrick Lynham? State your name and your where you live, your address.
Don Brockle, 710 Laurel Avenue, West Allenhurst.
And your questions pertain to Patrick Lynham, please.
Yeah, Patrick.
Yes.
You mentioned stormwater in your discussion. I think you just mentioned it again on meeting requirements, and that's wonderful. But above and beyond meeting the requirements, I'm hoping that the owner and maybe even the tenant would help along with the stormwater management and maybe even cleaning the water coming out of that area. There's the storm grates, I assume, are all compliant that are being put in. Is that correct? The ones that are there
Yes.
that aren't compliant are going to be replaced?
Yeah, they're echo grates, correct.
Okay, great. Are the other ones, there's others around the mall area, are they also going to be replaced?
No, just within the area of this project.
I would ask in goodwill to the citizens of West Ocean Township that they be complied with. It's been a lot of projects going on, and the contractor, the owner of the property has been doing a great job upgrading them, but this might be the last big development that we have, and I would love to have the board ask the owner to a little goodwill and upgrade all those. In addition, there's, I don't know, 6 or 7 treatment devices, special treatment devices, MTDs that the owner had put in, or the previous owner had put in, and they were adopted by the current owner. And there's hope there if we can get those upgraded to the current standards. They're in various different locations around the watershed in that area. So I don't know if have you looked into that, Pat?
Yes, that was part of the other application, and it was cleaned out during the other application, and it continues to be cleaned out. It is functioning, actually.
Yeah, there's some issues with them. I mean, if you drive by, you can see the tops off and things like that. There are some actually safety issues you might want to look at. Right when you exit the mall going towards the Starbucks area, there's a couple of problems over there. So, but they are old and they are antiquated. It'd be great if you guys can look into maybe upgrading those. That's all I have right now.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public have any questions for Patrick Lynham? Jennifer, do you have anybody else that you would like to?
No, it seemed to me that Mr. Siano was satisfied that we would review the parking for the hub with Mr. Fitzgerald and that we didn't need the additional testimony. So no, I wasn't expecting to put any more testimony. And while I appreciate Mr. Brockle's comments and his enthusiasm to protect the environment, and knowing that I see him out kayaking on Deal Lake in the summertime, and he's in a canoe, I'm in a kayak, and know how much he loves this. He knows that my applicant has worked with him over the years and gone above and beyond already with regard to the improvements and the maintenance on site, and has made donations to the Deal Lake watershed. And so none of those additional upgrades are part of the application before the board tonight. But as Pat indicated, to the areas that we are disturbing, we will comply with the stormwater management regs, and anywhere that we're putting in these new facilities, they will be the current.
Okay. Mr. Higgins, you want to read your report?
You want me to read it? I will if you want.
Or-
It's dated, yes, it's dated February 19th. It's probably quicker if I read it. The applicant is proposing to convert the second story of the prior Sears building from retail use to retail distribution center. Site changes will include the replacement of an existing canopy with a larger canopy, reconfiguration of the circulation and parking area nearest the building to include stacking and loading areas for delivery vans, reconfiguration of the parking lot, and reconfiguration of the access to the loading area at the northeast corner of the building. The proposed use of retail distribution center is a permitted use in the C4 zone and requires one parking space for 1,000 square feet of gross floor area. The existing approved use of the second floor of the former Sears building is retail sales, which requires 5 parking spaces per 1,000 square feet. Based on the gross floor area of the second story of the building, the existing parking requirement is 488 parking spaces, and the proposed parking requirement is 94 parking spaces. Consequently, the overall parking requirement for the shopping center is being reduced by 392 parking spaces. The existing parking area contains a total of 506 parking spaces. And rather than go into all the numbers and everything, basically there's a net gain overall of 24 parking spaces that would be available to either employees or the general public. In addition, there's approximately 150 spaces for the vans. So there's a net gain overall of 174 parking spaces. The bulk variances, the C4 zone standards differ from the standards for the balance of the township in many respects, particularly with regard to parking area design. And I'll read the standards for the C4. Parking areas shall be divided into lots separated by appropriate landscaping. Driveways and internal roads shall be separated from parking areas and aisles by curbed landscaped islands, which will be an average of 10 feet wide and a minimum of 8 feet wide at any point to facilitate traffic movements. Minimum 10-foot wide landscaped islands shall be provided at the end of each row of parking and every 20 spaces within the interior of the parking rows, except that islands at the end of each row of parking may be reduced to 8 feet wide, provided the average island width at the end of the parking rows is 10 feet. Planting diamonds, 4.5 square feet, shall be installed in parking rows between landscaped islands, a minimum of every 7 spaces. Where possible, 8-foot wide landscaped areas shall be periodically be provided between facing rows of parking. Just in that last regard, the diamonds, I think over the years, it's been shown that they really don't work that well, particularly since it's very difficult to irrigate them, and the applicant hasn't provided them. But I think what's been proposed tonight, I think, goes a long way towards really meeting the intent of the ordinance. The proposed plan deviates from the requirements of this section. In a number of areas, the minimum 10-foot wide landscaped islands are not provided at the southern ends of the rows of the 138 conventional parking spaces. Planting diamonds are not provided as required, which I just discussed. While the plan provides separation between rows of parking, these are 6-foot wide concrete walks and not 8-foot wide landscaped areas. And now the applicant is proposing 6-foot wide landscaped areas. So I think that's a significant improvement. I have the following comments. Basically, my comments were that they should take those concrete sidewalks and turn them into landscaped areas, which they have done. So go. There's a number of areas where more than 20 parking spaces are provided without the required landscaped islands. And again, I think by doing what they've done, I think they've really met the intent of the ordinance in terms of providing sufficient landscaping within the parking area. So I don't have a big problem with that. The one issue that has to be discussed, and it hasn't been, is the issue of sprinkler system. The applicant hasn't requested a formal waiver of that. There may be a few islands where it's just not practical to provide a sprinkler in them because you would have to disturb, cut up existing good paved area and then patch it. And I don't know if the trade-off there makes sense to provide sprinklers in a few isolated island areas. The major areas that are being proposed to be landscaped, I think, can be accessed with a sprinkler system because they can be accessed from the building through the area where the pavement is going to be disturbed. So you're not going to have good existing pavement being dug up just to provide a sprinkler system to one small island. But I would suggest if the board is inclined to approve this application, a condition be that the applicant work with Bill and I in terms of how to provide sprinkler systems, which areas to provide them in.
That's fine, Dr. Benedetto.
Okay.
And the landscape plan was not signed by a landscape architect, so that's a variance. And again, I don't have a big problem. There are still some very minor issues on a landscape plan that I think need to be addressed. But again, a condition of approval, should you choose to approve the application, can be that the applicant work with Bill and I in providing an adequate landscape plan. The sodding, the ordinance requires sod in all disturbed areas. I don't know if they're going to be providing any grass areas in the disturbed areas. It's all going to be basically landscape beds. So I don't know if they need that waiver. I think that has to be clarified. And the tree location and preservation plan, they really haven't submitted a formal plan, but looking at it, it looks like they're removing a total of 10 trees, qualifying trees, and they're providing more than 10 replacement trees. So I think they've met the intent of the ordinance there.
How do you feel about Jim's report, Mrs. Krimko?
We can comply with all of it. I would just ask for the waiver on the sod. I don't believe we have an area of grass, so it really shouldn't matter one way or another.
So can we see the color drawing again?
Yeah, sure. And I actually went over this with the engineer before the hearing. Give me 1 second, I'll call it up.
Does Amy have to give you? Oh, there you go.
Yeah. So there may be a small area of grass over here, but it appears that everywhere else is landscape beds in their entirety. And you know, in these landscape beds, I think, as Patrick testified, we're probably going to do the decorative stone as suggested by Mr. Higgins, or the mulch. So I don't even know that it applies.
Okay. And you're okay with?
I don't want to be in a position where we discover there's a small patch of grass that we're doing and you know, we can't seed it. So I guess I'm asking if there's an area that there is a small patch of grass that we be permitted to seed it, since it is going to be such a small area.
Historically,
the sod shouldn't matter and it gets it done, but why don't we just agree now that there won't be any grass, that there'll be ornamental grasses and the kind of mulch ground coverings that Jim recommended.
Happy to do that.
Okay. And you'll also work with them with the sprinklers, correct?
Yeah, of course. And that's what we talked about in advance of the hearing. We're happy to put the sprinklers in where it's practical, and the pavement's already being ripped up, but it would seem silly to rip up good pavement for the sprinklers. So yes, of course.
Does the parking lot need to be repaved? I'm just asking a general question. It's been there for a long time.
We are proposing to seal coat and restripe. We have to restripe anyway, so we're going to seal coat the parking lot that's not being ripped up.
Okay.
Any other questions for Jim's report? Bill, you went through your report already.
Yeah, well, it was a little unusual, but right, I had sent out an illustration with my questions written right on it, which served as a point of discussion. I will say that we have a standard for seal coating and maintaining parking lots like this that we'll offer to the applicant as a condition of approval.
And Ms. Krimko, you'll follow Bill's recommendations also, correct?
It took several decades, but I've learned that there's no other way. So yes.
It's working out. See that, Jennifer?
I'm a slow learner, Dr. De Benedetto.
It's okay. We're we all have a little bit of stubbornness in us, right?
Yeah.
Not me.
Any questions from the public? I'd like to close the hearing. Would somebody like to make a positive resolution for this project?
I will.
Who's that?
This is Jeff. I'll make a positive resolution for this project.
We get a second?
I'll second.
Second.
Who won?
Dr. Fisher, second.
Ah, way to get in there, Dave.
Amy, roll call, please.
Mr. DeFilia,
Yes.
Dr. Fisher,
Yes.
Ms. Clues,
yes,
Mr. Siano,
Yes.
Mr. Weinstein,
Yes.
Chairman DeBenedetto.
Yes. Thank you for all your help and good work tonight. And the meeting,
you.
we should close
Motion
the
to
meeting.
adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
What's that?
I think you should have a motion to adjourn.
I was getting to that, Sandy.
Oh, sorry.
Don't rush the man, Sandy.
I thought I was in a rush.
The bachelor just started.
We get a motion to close the meeting.
I'll make that motion. This is Ed.
I'll second.
Okay.
Amy, roll call, please.
Mr. DeFilia,
Yes.
Dr. Fisher,
Yes.
Ms. Clues,
yes.
Mr. Siano,
Yes.
Mr. Weinstein,
Yes.
Chairman DeBenedetto.
Yes. See you next month.
Thank
Have a
you.
great
Thank you.
Great month.
Be well.